Hello everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is Saturday, July 12th, 2025, and Ter Stegen has become the number one priority for a certain club, and I'm going to tell you who it is. Also, Marseille out of the Ligue 1 have now entered the race for Oscar Mingueza. And finally, Ivan Rakitic admitting that the team dropped the ball where they could have won more than one Champions League. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo. I will begin this video with the news that Ter Stegen has now become the number one priority for no other than the Turkish club Galatasaray. Now Galatasaray right now, their number one priority is to finalize the signing of Osimhen, who spent last season there on loan. He ended up killing it. But as soon as they're finalized with that, or they're done with that signing, it's reported that Galatasaray will go all out to sign the German goalkeeper Ter Stegen. And of course, this news comes on the back of yesterday's news that I talked about in the podcast, where Hansi Flick met with Ter Stegen and let him know very clearly that, hey, you're not going to be the starter. We signed Joan Garcia. The plan is for Joan Garcia to be the number one. For Wojciech Szczesny to be the number two, who just extended his contract until 2027. And therefore, if Ter Stegen wants more minutes, Flick let him know it's best that you go somewhere else. Now, Barcelona are not going to go through any drastic moves. They're not going to try to push Ter Stegen out. This conversation was kind of to let him know, hey, you're not going to be getting minutes. So if you want to start in the 2026 World Cup, it's best that you leave. But if you want to stay, that's fine. You can stay. Just know you're most likely not going to be the starter. Now, the ball is now in Ter Stegen's court. He's going to have to decide, do I stay and try to earn my spot back, or do I leave and try to play, get minutes somewhere else? But in case he does decide to leave, now we have Galatasaray, who have made him their number one priority because they need to replace Muslera, who has left the Turkish club. Now, speaking of signings, speaking of Hansi Flick, it's reported that now Manchester United are awaiting Barcelona's move for Marcus Rashford, and I'm telling you why they're extra excited. Not just because they want to get rid of Rashford, but there's another reason, which I'll tell you in a few moments. Now, as I reported in yesterday's podcast, Hansi Flick has officially greenlit the operation to sign Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford was one of the favorite backup options. Of course, the number one option was Nico Williams. That failed. The second number one option, I guess, well, I don't know if that makes sense, the second number one option, but I guess the second priority would be Luis Diaz, who's Deco's favorite option. But of course, that has been ruled as unfeasible because Liverpool won 85 million euros and Barcelona cannot afford to pay that. So then there was Rashford, who was the most likely backup option. Didn't really generate consensus within the club, but now that Hansi Flick has greenlit this operation, that's it. It means that Barcelona will have to go after him. After all, the player is eager to come to Barcelona. He's willing to force Manchester United to accept the loan because initially they only wanted a permanent transfer, and he's even willing to reduce his salary. So the new news is that now Barcelona are expected to begin talks to sign Marcus Rashford the next week. Next week. Well, next week. I'm just emphasizing the next, because I guess next week would be in 2-3 weeks. But no, next week, Monday, July 14th, that week, Barcelona will initiate talks to try to sign Marcus Rashford. Now, I told you that Man United are now more excited and awaiting Barcelona's move because not only do they want to get rid of Rashford, they want nothing to do with him. They don't want to even hear his name around their installations. But it's reported that Manchester United are now heavily interested in Marc Casado. Yes, another club joins the race for Marc Casado. Pretty much half of Europe now want Marc Casado, but Man United could be bringing up his name during the negotiations with Rashford because they would like to sign him. They might, maybe offer some kind of swap deal, swap plus cash, etc. But of course, as I've said many times in previous videos, Barcelona do not plan to sell Casado. Hansi Flick considers him a very important piece of his team. Casado has made it very clear that he wants to stay in Barcelona, and the only way Barcelona would even consider the transfer of Casado is if they receive some big offer, 50, 60 million euros. Otherwise, he's not for sale. Casado is not looking to leave. So for now, of course, he is staying put. But we'll see what Manchester United will offer Barcelona because, again, it's expected that they are going to bring up the name of Casado during the negotiations for Marcus Rashford. Now, on to the next bit of news, because Marseille out of the Ligue 1 have now joined the race for Oscar Mingueza. Now, the 26-year-old, the right back, had a pretty successful season last season. He even got a call-up to the, well, several call-ups to the Spanish national team. And given his good performance with Celta Vigo, Aston Villa were very, very interested in signing him. Negotiations kind of stalled with Celta Vigo, where Celta Vigo are looking to actually extend the contract of Oscar Mingueza. But now it looks like Marseille are also interested in the former Barcelona player, and they are going to be, contacting the player and Celta Vigo to try to begin negotiations. And of course, this is important, and the reason I bring this up is because Barcelona do own 50% of the rights of the player. So if the player does end up going to Aston Villa or to Marseille, whatever each one of those clubs pay, Barcelona would get half of that, which of course would go a long, long way in helping Barcelona registering players. Because as I told you in yesterday's podcast, even if Barcelona reached the 1-1 rule, they still need to clear space on their wage bill, or of course make extra income from transfers in order to be able to register Joan Garcia, and of course any other signings they make. For example, Marcus Rashford, if he does end up coming to Barcelona. So, of course, we will be keeping track on this, on Oscar Mingueza, to see what goes on, whether he goes to Aston Villa, Marseille, somewhere else. Of course, he could also renew with Celta Vigo, and if he does, Barcelona would not get a single penny. So, Oscar Mingueza, come on, man, go somewhere else. But anyways, let's move on to the next bit of news, because speaking of defenders, check out the latest post by Ronald Aragon on his Instagram page, where he posted a picture of him at, I think that's the Copa del Rey, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because that looks like Sevilla's stadium. But it's him at the Copa del Rey with the medal. And of course, he puts Más que un club, or more than a club, which is Barcelona's slogan, with a heart. And I think with this is very, very clear. Araujo is making it very, very clear that it's his intention to stay at Barcelona, despite, all the links with him leaving, or with other clubs being interested in him, or even with his release clause being as low as 65 million euros until July 15th, so 2 more days. He's still making it clear, hey, I'm not leaving, I'm here to stay. All right, we will end today's video with the news that Ivan Rakitic, who recently announced his retirement from football, gave a very extensive interview. He talked a lot about his time at Barcelona. He talked about Messi, Xavi, Iniesta. But more importantly, I wanted to focus on some statements that he made, where he made it clear that, well, the team pretty much dropped the ball. They kind of stopped, competing, and that's why they weren't able to win any more Champions League. So let's look at Ivan Rakitic's statements, but we're going to start with the Xavi statements, because they do relate to his statements about the Champions League. So let's start with those statements, where Rakitic had the following to say. I think that's also everything we left in the following years, was for not having bad Xavi in the locker room. Why? Because I learned from Xavi. I think we all learned from him. Better than him in the middle, there was none. But it was only what he did. But it was not only what he did in the field. I think the translation's off. I was especially impressed by how he dominated the locker room, how he dominated the press, how he dominated the marketing part of the club. I always said that I also like the role of a leader to manage everything, and it helped me to position myself to see things a little differently. When we lost all this, we missed in detail to win the games in the following years. So Rakitic making it very clear how important Xavi was in the locker room, not just on the field, of course, because he's one of the greatest midfielders ever, but also in the locker room, where he was the leader, where he, led the entire team, told everybody what to do, motivated them. So Xavi had a very, very important role, again, not just on the field by being the best midfielder, or one of the best midfielders in the history, but also as a leader in the locker room. And this is where this ties into what Rakitic had to say about the Champions League. It's very sad. It's very sad and makes us angry. And I'm convinced that Leo, Luis, Ney, Buzi, Andres, Piqué, and the rest of us would like to beat ourselves, because I said it many times, with all my respect, we have let ourselves go. That's why I said before that Xavi's figure in that first season was very important. At the time, we didn't understand it. But now with time, I think we do understand it. Without him, all those details that he had controlled escaped us along the way. And it's a shame. It's a great shame, because I think we could have perfectly won 3 or 4 Champions League. And I have to agree 100% with Rakitic. It is a shame, because I think we had a team that could have won many more Champions League we didn't, and now Rakitic is telling us why. Because the team just let themselves go. They stopped competing. They stopped trying. And he says a lot of it had to do with Xavi Hernandez leaving, because he was the leader of that locker room. And I believe him, because after Xavi left, after Luis Enrique left, there were pretty much no leaders in Barcelona, right? We had Bartomeu, who was an incredibly weak and corrupt president. We had Valverde, who wasn't really a coach that can inspire. So I guess without that leadership figure, Xavi Hernandez, I guess the team didn't have a leader anymore. They didn't have a compass. And well, we all know what happened in the following years. And again, like Rakitic said, absolute shame, because with all those names that he mentioned, this Barcelona could have won a lot more. Anyways, that is all for this video. I did upload another video a few moments ago, so make sure to check it out. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. And as always, Visca Barça.